The outpost was always hot and dusty. Wind blew fine red sand through every open crack. It stuck to boots, faces, and even the walls. But inside the small repair station, it was quiet and cool. There, behind the workbench, sat Vila, an alien. Girl with pale violet skin and glowing eyes. She wore a long, dark robe that covered her fully, hiding her small form beneath layers of cloth. She didn't like being noticed, and she especially didn't like humans. Humans made her nervous. They were loud, tall, and their eyes always lingered too long. Vela had learned to avoid them, especially after some of them laughed at her strange voice. She worked quietly, fixing broken tools and damaged suits. Never talking much, but today, a human had arrived different from the others. He was quiet. It's almost too quiet for a human. His name was Tom, and he brought a broken biotech suit to her station. Vela looked at the suit, then looked at him. He smiled. "Gently, can you fix this?" He asked softly, his voice calm and kind. Vela hesitated, but nodded. Reaching out her small hands, she noticed the suit was from an older model, half alien tech, half human, strange mix, unstable sometimes. Tom placed it carefully on her table and stepped back. Vela liked that. He gave her space. As she opened the back panel, she found burnt wires and a cracked enhancer core. The enhancer helped with body support, mostly used to adjust size and strength. She pulled out a small tool from her belt, one that connected directly to the core. Tom leaned slightly forward, watching. "You're good at this?" he said. Vila didn't reply, her cheeks warming under her hood. No one ever said that to her. Not in her whole life. As she worked, something sparked. The enhancer core lit up. Suddenly, glowing a soft blue, Vila froze. "That's not normal," she whispered to herself. Tom stepped closer. "Is it dangerous?" "I don't know," she replied, still staring at the core. Then, the light shifted blue to pink, then to red. Before she could react, a pulse burst from the device. It passed through her gloves and into her chest. She gasped as heat spread through her body. Tom reached forward. "Are you okay?" She backed away quickly, her body shaking. She grabbed the robe tightly around herself and ran out of the room. Tom stood frozen, confused and worried. "What just happened?" he whispered. Vela didn't stop running until she reached her small sleeping pod. She closed the door and leaned against it, breathing fast. Her hands shook as she pulled back the robe and looked down. Her body looked different. Her chest was fuller, her figure had changed. What is this?" she whispered, touching her skin. The enhancer had done something, boosted her appearance. Not in strength or height, but in form. A form that now looked more human, more adult. She curled into a ball on her bed, face burning. "He saw me," she whispered. He saw the change. All night, she stayed awake, heart pounding. The robe lay beside her, but she didn't want to wear it anymore. And yet, she had to. She couldn't let anyone else see her like this. Not the workers, not the aliens, and not the human named Tom. The next morning, she wrapped herself tightly in her robe again. She avoided mirrors and kept her head low. But when she stepped into the station, she felt its highs watching her. The station felt different now, like the air itself knew her secret. And then, she saw him, Tom, waiting at her workbench. He smiled when he saw her, but she quickly looked away. He stepped forward slowly. "Hey, about yesterday, are you all right?" She didn't answer. He looked confused, maybe even guilty. "I didn't mean to hurt you." "I swear," he said, voice low and careful. Still, she said nothing, only pulled her robe tighter, but inside, her heart raced every time he looked at her, not from fear, but from something worse. She didn't understand it, didn't want it. But every glance from him made her cheeks turn warm again, and no matter how much she tried to hide, she knew it was only the beginning of something she wasn't ready for. Something that would change everything. Vila didn't sleep well. That night, her mind was spinning. Her chest still felt heavy knot from pain. But from change, the enhancer had done something strange to her body. Something she never asked for, never wanted. She wasn't sure if she should feel scared, angry, or embarrassed. Her reflection didn't lie. The curves were not hers. They didn't belong to her natural shape. The biotech had boosted her body, reshaped her chest, and made her look more appealing. Appealing in a way that made her look like one of those human holodancers she once saw in passing. She covered herself tightly and curled up again. Why did he have to help? She whispered, voice small and confused. She knew Tom hadn't done it on purpose. But it still happened, and now she had to live with it. The next day, she walked through the outpost like a ghost. Eyes low, heart beating too fast every time. Someone passed by. She felt like they knew. She thought she was being paranoid until the whispers started. Is that her? She looks different. She hiding something under that robe. The alien workers didn't say it to her face, but their sideways looks and smirks were loud enough. Vila tried to ignore it, but it hurt. Not just the stares, but the way they made her feel like an object, not a person. When she returned to the repair station, Tom was already there. He stood beside the same table where it all began. His tools were neatly lined up, but he wasn't working. He was waiting for her. She froze in the doorway, unsure whether to step inside. Tom saw her, smiled softly, and raised a hand. "I didn't think you'd come back," he said. Vila said nothing, only nodded and walked slowly to her corner. He took a step closer, but stopped himself. "I think the enhancer caused something strange," he said, trying to sound casual. "I checked the blueprint. There was an old booster module still live. Connected to human DNA settings." Vela stiffened. "You mean?" "It was made to shape bodies based on human beauty standards." Tom's face went pale. "I didn't know it would activate, especially not like that," he said quickly. "I swear, Vila, I didn't mean to change anything." Vila stayed quiet for a moment. Then she asked in a whisper, "Did you see it?" Tom blinked. "What?" She looked away, her voice trembling. "Did you see what it did to me before I ran?" Tom looked down, his face turning red. "I just a glimpse," he admitted. "It wasn't about what I saw. It was how surprised you looked, like you were hurt." Vila's hands trembled. But she tried to hide it. She wasn't angry at him, not really. She was angry at the tech, the mistake. The change she couldn't control, but deep inside, a tiny part of her was scared of what he thought of her now. Tom noticed her silence and stepped back. "I can try to fix it," he said. "I'll take the enhancer apart and build something new, something that lets you choose how you look." Vila's eyes widened. "You would do that?" "Of course," he said. "No one should be stuck in a body that doesn't feel right." Vela didn't know what to say. No one had ever offered her that kind of care. No one had ever looked past her shape and into her. Just then the station's door opened again. 2 alien workers stepped in, laughing loudly. Their eyes landed on Violand. One of them smirked. "Careful, human," he joked. "She might grow wings next." They laughed and walked away. Vila's face turned deep purple with shame. Tom, however, didn't laugh. He turned to her, his voice quiet but strong. "You don't deserve that, Vila." She looked at him, blinking fast. "You really don't see me the way they do?" she asked. Tom shook his head. "I see someone who works hard, keeps to herself, and fixes broken things." Then he paused, "and someone who's been broken by others too many times." Vila's throat tightened. Her robe slipped slightly from her shoulder, and she quickly pulled it back. But Tom didn't stare, didn't smirk. He turned away, respecting her space. That small act said more than words ever could. "I'll work on the new device," he said, as he grabbed his tools. "It'll take a few days, but when it's done, you'll be able to shape the suit yourself." Vila nodded. "Thank you," she whispered, and for the first time, her blush wasn't from shame, but something warmer. Something soft and strange as Tom worked late into the night. Vela watched him from the shadows, her heart still confused. But one thought stayed in her mind. He's the first one who tried to fix me, without trying to own me, and that made all the difference. The market at the edge of the colony was always alive. Colors, smells, and voices filled the air like music. Traders shouted, kids ran past, and alien creatures crawled between crates. But today, Vila felt every eye like a spotlight. She wrapped her robe tighter and kept her head down. Even so, she heard the whispers. She's the one. After that upgrade, she thinks she's better. Did you see her shape yesterday? Unreal. Their words stabbed deeper than knives. No one said it to her face. But no one had to. Their laughter, their stares, they said enough. Vila used to be invisible here. Now, she was too visible. And not in a good way, and all of it, every cruel comment came from an accident, a mistake from a human trying to help. She reached a small stall near the corner, one that sold circuit fuses. Her hands trembled as she picked the ones she needed. "Rough day?" asked the vendor, a wrinkled alien woman with 6 eyes. Vela nodded without speaking. The vendor gave her a long look and then lowered her voice. "They fear what shines, child." Vela blinked, confused. The woman smiled gently. "They whisper, because they see you becoming more. Vila thought, more what? She paid and left quickly, the words staying with her. More was not what she felt. She felt less, smaller, even inside this bigger form. Tom was working again when she returned. He was covered in grease, wires tangled around his arms like vines. "Hey," he said, not looking up. "I got the interface working." She placed the parts on the bench quietly. He glanced at her and frowned. "What happened?" She didn't answer at first, then said softly, "They're laughing at me." Tom stood up and wiped his hands. "You don't have to let them decide who you are." "I don't want to be anything," Vela whispered. "I just want to disappear." Again, Tom reached for something under the bench and pulled out a small, silver device. It was sleek and smooth, with a glowing center. "This," he said, "lets you control the enhancement." He handed it to her. "You want to shrink back to your old body? You can. You want to keep it? Fine too. You can even switch forms whenever you want." Vela stared at the device like it was magic. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. Tom smiled faintly. "Because it was my mistake," he said. "And because I think you deserve to choose who you want to be." Her hands closed around the device. It was warm-like. It knew her touch. She activated it slowly, and her body began to shift. She shrank slightly, returning to the form she remembered, slimmer. Smaller then. With another blink, she returned to the new form. The one with curves that made people stare. Then back again. Tom didn't say a word. Didn't even look directly at her. He gave her space, just like always. And that made her heart ache in a new, strange way. "Do you like how I look?" she asked suddenly. Tom hesitated. "Not the shape." He said finally, "I like how you carry it." Vila tilted her head. "What does that mean?" Tom smiled. "It means confidence is more powerful than any suit." She looked away, hiding her face. But she was smiling too, just a little. The next day, Vila walked through the market again, not in hiding. She didn't wear the robe, not fully. Her new body shimmered with soft armor and glowing lines from the suit. The device clipped to her belt, ready to shift if she wanted. But today, she chose to walk as she was. Some still whispered, but others fell silent. Some even nodded, their eyes less mocking and more curious. She saw a few alien girls glance at her, not with jealousy, but wonder, like they were seeing something possible. Tom watched from a distance. He leaned against a post, arms crossed, smiling quietly. He didn't walk beside her. This was her moment. Not his, but when her eyes found his across the crowd. She smiled, and he gave her a small wave for the first time. The market didn't feel like a battlefield. It felt like a stage, and Vela, once the quiet, hidden girl, was now standing in the light, but deep inside her heart, one worry still burned. If he touched the wrong button once, what happens if he touches the right one? And why did that thought make her heart beat even faster? Vela sat alone in the repair bay, her legs pulled to her chest. The market had been too much. She thought she was ready, thought she could walk among the crowd with confidence. But the stares didn't stop. Even the smiles felt heavy, like eyes peeling away her layers. Tom's words echoed in her mind. You can choose who you want to be, but what if she didn't know who that was? Her new body felt like a costume she wasn't brave enough to wear, and her old one. It felt like something she had already outgrown. Everywhere she went, people stared not because of her skills or her name, but because of her shape, her body. A mistake had made her more noticeable. Now, all she wanted was to disappear again. She activated the device on her belt. Her body shifted smaller, slimmer, like before. The tightness in her chest eased. But something else remained. Emptiness. Tom knocked gently on the side wall before stepping in. You okay? He asked. She shook her head. I don't know who I am anymore, she whispered. He walked over slowly, sat on the floor beside her. You're still Vela, he said. Oh, the same one who fixed my broken tools with one hand and no instructions. She smiled weakly. But they don't see that anymore, she replied. Tom looked down. Nodding. I know, he said. I've been watched too, for being human. She looked at him, surprised. Really? Tom gave a small laugh. Yeah, especially out here, he said. Some aliens think I'm too soft. Others think I'm dangerous. Vela tilted her head. Which are you? Both maybe, he said with a wink. For the first time all. Vela laughed. It was soft and short, but real. And Tom noticed, but later that evening, as the lights of the outpost dimmed, Vela slipped away. She didn't tell Tom. Didn't leave a message. She just needed space. The kind of space that only the dark outer fields could give. She walked beyond the gates, into the glowing dunes. The stars above were clearer here. Far from the noise, she sat on a rock and stared at the twin moons rising over the sand. No whispers, no eyes, no stares. Just silence. Why did you do this to me? She whispered to the sky. Of course, there was no answer. Only the wind, warm and quiet, brushing across her cheeks. But back at the outpost, Tom was panicking. He returned to the workshop and found her gone. Her tools still sat where she had left them, her belt device missing. He checked the quarters, the market, even the kitchens. No sign. She left. One of the alien workers said with a smirk, guess she couldn't handle being the center of attention. Tom's jaw tightened. He didn't argue. Instead, he grabbed a tracker from his Bagwan he had installed in the enhancer device for safety. He followed the signal, his boots crunching softly through the dust. When he found her, she didn't look surprised. Only tired. You followed me, she said quietly. I was worried, he replied, sitting next to her without asking. They sat in silence for a while, then she spoke. I ran because I didn't know what to do. You don't have to do anything, Tom replied, but I'm tired of being stared at, she said, voice shaking. I'm tired of being a body, not a person. Tom turned to her. Vela, he said gently. You're the only person I've met here who fixed something broken without asking for anything in return. You don't need to prove yourself to anyone. She looked down at her hands. I didn't even ask you to help me that day. She whispered. I know, he said, and I made a mistake, but the truth is, I don't regret meeting you. She looked up at him, eyes wide. Why? Because, Tom said with a small smile, you showed me that strength isn't always loud. It can be quiet, stubborn, and wrapped in a robe. Her face flushed with a soft purple hue. She didn't hide this time. I don't know what to do with this feeling, she admitted. Tom chuckled. Neither do I, he said. But we don't have to run from it. The wind grew softer as the moons climbed higher. They sat there, close but not touching, two lives changed by an accident, two hearts starting to beat in rhythm. Even if they didn't understand it yet, and far behind them, the whispers in the market kept going. But out here, in the quiet between stars, they didn't matter. Not tonight. The next morning came softly. Sunlight fell over the metal roofs of the colony, warm and golden. The dust hadn't yet begun to blow. And for a while, everything felt still. Inside the repair station, Tom was already working. But today, his hands moved slower than usual. He kept looking at the small device Vela had taken with her the night before. He wasn't sure if she'd come back. Part of him feared she'd vanish into the desert forever. He hated that idea more than he thought he would, but just before noon, the door slid open quietly. Vela stepped in, her robe hanging loose around her shoulders. She wasn't hiding today. Tom looked up, surprised but smiled right away. Hey, he said, you okay? She nodded slowly. Tired, she said. But better than yesterday. She walked to the workbench and placed the device down. I want to understand it, she said. Not just use to understand it. Tom raised an eyebrow, then grinned. All right, he said. Lesson 1. Don't touch the glowing parts unless you want surprises. Vela laughed quietly. Her laugh always made the room feel less cold. They worked together the rest of the day. Tom showed her the inner parts of the enhancer, the circuits, the memory core, the emotion-linked feedback nodes. Emotion-linked? She asked. He nodded. Yeah. This old tech was meant to adjust based on how you feel about yourself. Vela stared at the device, surprised, so when I felt confused and scared. It shaped me like that. Exactly, Tom said. It didn't know what you wanted. Just what was loudest in your mind. Vela sat back, her hands still. All this time. I thought it was about what others wanted to see, but it was just reflecting my own fears. Tom looked at her with quiet respect. You're learning fast, he said. She turned to him and asked softly, and what does it reflect now? Tom didn't answer at first. He didn't need to. The glow in the device was calm and steady, no wild pulses. No strange shifts. For the first time, it wasn't reacting, it was resting. Because she was finally starting to rest, too, later, when the work was done. Tom pulled a small package from his bag. Here, he said, handing it to her. She opened it slowly and found a fresh suit custom printed with soft colors, flexible armor, and light mesh beneath. It's based on the new body settings, he said. But you can modify it any time, make it yours. Vela stared at it, her hands shaking just a little. This is mine. Tom nodded. Every part, he said. No one else touches it. No one else defines it. She stood there, staring at the suit. It wasn't about the curves or the shine. It was about having something made for her. Something that didn't come from mistake or shame. Something she could own. Why did you do this? She whispered. Tom scratched the back of his neck. Well, he said awkwardly, you said you didn't know who you are, so I figured. Maybe giving you the tools to build yourself would help. She looked up at him with soft, searching eyes. You really think I can become something better? Tom smiled, a little sadly. I don't think you need to be better. He said, I think you already are. The words hit her harder than she expected. Not because they were romantic, but because they were honest. No one had ever told her that she was enough, just as she was. She stepped closer, holding the suit tightly to her chest. Then, without thinking, she leaned in and pressed her forehead gently against his shoulder. Tom froze for a moment, then relaxed. He didn't pull away, didn't say anything. He just stood there with her, letting the silence speak. "I don't want to hide anymore," she whispered. "You don't have to," he replied. His voice low and warm. They stood like that for a while. And when they finally parted, the room felt different, not because of the air, but because of what had changed between them. That night, Vela wore the new suit under her robe. She walked to the edge of the outpost and looked out at the stars. She wasn't running anymore. She wasn't hiding. She was becoming, and behind her. Tom watched from the door, not as her fixer, not as her rescuer, but as someone who believed in her. Even when she couldn't believe in herself, Vela walked through the market again. But this time, everything was different. She no longer wore the heavy robe that had hidden her for so long. Instead, she wore her new suit light. Flexible, and made just for her. The colors shimmered gently in the sun, and the lines hugged her figure in a way that felt natural. Not forced, and most importantly, it was her choice. Some aliens stared, others whispered, but Vela no longer shrank under their eyes. Her steps were steady, her back straight. She wasn't showing off. She was existing fully, freely. Tom watched her from a distance. Leaning against a pillar beside a repair shop, he smiled when he saw her move through the crowd, not with fear, but with quiet strength. She caught his eye, and for a moment, something unspoken passed between them. Then she looked away, her cheeks glowing faintly, but she didn't hide. Later, in the repair station, they worked side by side like they always had, but something had shifted, not in the tools or the space, but in the air between them. It was warmer, closer, more alive. Tom glanced at her while she soldered a cracked circuit board. "You know," he said, "you've changed a lot in just a few days." Vela looked at him, then back at her work. "I think I was always like this," she replied. "I just didn't know how to be it." Tom nodded, impressed. "That's a powerful thing to realize," he said. She smiled faintly. "I owe you for that," she whispered. "No," he replied gently. "You did the hard part yourself." She didn't argue, but the warmth in her heart grew stronger. Even with her new body, new clothes, and a new sense of control, it wasn't the suit that made her stronger. It was the understanding, the choice. That evening, the outpost prepared for the Lantern Night, a small celebration where people released floating lights into the sky, a way to send wishes into the stars. Vela had never gone before, always hiding during it, but this time, she went. The sky darkened slowly as creatures from many species gathered. Tom stood beside her, holding 2 paper lanterns. "Want to light one?" he asked. Vela nodded slowly, taking the small flame tool from him. She lit the base of her lantern and watched it fill with warm air. "What will you wish for?" Tom asked quietly. She thought for a moment. "I don't think I need to wish," she said, "because what I wanted is already here." Tom looked at her, his heart skipping a beat. She didn't meet his eyes, too shy. Maybe, but her words stayed with him. They both released their lanterns into the night sky. Dozens of lights floated up, glowing like stars against the darkness. Vela watched them rise, her eyes wide and full of wonder. Then she turned to Tom. Slowly, "Why do you look at me that way?" she asked softly. Tom hesitated. "What way? Like I'm something special?" she whispered. He smiled. "Because you are," he said simply. Vela's breath caught in her throat. Her cheeks burned, but this time she didn't look away. "You don't just see the suit," she said. Tom shook his head. "I saw you even before the suit changed." He said, "I saw the girl who fixed things, even when no one fixed her." Her chest tightened. Not with fear, but something else. Something that made her want to cry and laugh at the same time. "You make me feel safe," she said quietly. "And you make me feel seen," he replied. They stood like that for a moment, surrounded by lantern light and soft silence. Then a breeze passed between them, gentle and cool. Vela stepped a little closer, her hand brushing against his. Neither of them moved away. Their fingers didn't intertwine, but they didn't need to. The connection was already there. Later, as they walked back to the station, Vela looked up at the stars. "I used to think strength came from hiding pain," she said, "but now I think it comes from sharing it." Tom looked at her with quiet pride. "You've become stronger than your suit," he said. "And you've become more than I ever expected to find out here," she replied. They reached the station door and paused. Tom opened it, but before going inside, Vela turned to him and said, "Tomorrow, maybe we don't work." Tom raised a brow. "Oh, maybe we walk," she said with a small smile. "Just walk." "And talk," he smiled, slow and warm. "I'd like that," he said, and as the door closed behind them, the outpost lights flickered in the night. It's not because of faulty wiring, but because something brighter was growing quietly between them. The next day, the sun rose slowly over the dusty outpost. Warm light spilled across the metal walkways and the red sand. But today felt different, not because of the weather or the market noise, but because of what Vela had decided she didn't. Go to the repair station that morning. She didn't check her tools or charge the power cells. Instead, she stood outside her quarters in her custom suit. No robe, no device to hide her shape, just her, as she truly was. Tom was waiting near the edge of the market, just like they had planned. He saw her from a distance, and his smile came fast, not because of her body, not because of the suit, but because she walked toward him like she finally belonged. "You look different today," he said. "I feel different," she replied. Together, they walked past the traders, the storage units, the old scrapyard. No one whispered this time. Maybe because they were tired, or maybe because confidence silences gossip. They reached the quiet cliffs beyond the colony walls, a place few went. With soft winds and a view of the glowing horizon, there they sat on a flat stone and watched the twin suns rise higher. Vela spoke first. "When I was younger," she said, "I wanted to disappear." "Why?" Tom asked gently. "Because the moment I was seen, someone tried to change me, change how I spoke, how I dressed, how I moved, so I hid, thinking invisibility was freedom." Tom nodded slowly. "And now? Now I know freedom isn't hiding," she said. "It's being seen." And not apologizing for it, Tom turned to her, his voice soft. "I'm proud of you, Vela," smiled, her cheeks glowing a little. "I'm proud of me too," she whispered. They sat in silence for a while, letting the wind talk. Then Tom said, "You know, this started with an accident." Vela laughed softly. "Yes," she said. "You boosted the wrong button." "I really did," Tom chuckled. "But maybe it was the right mistake." Vela turned to him, her eyes serious now. "Tom, what do you see when you look at me now?" He took a breath and met her gaze. "I see someone brave," he said. "Someone kind and strong. And more than just her body, I see you, Vela." Her heart beat faster, not from nerves, but from warmth. "I used to think you saw the suit," she said. "I did at first," he admitted. "But then I saw how you carried it. That made me look deeper." She reached for his hand slowly, carefully. This time, she didn't pull away. Her fingers slipped into his, soft and sure. Tom's hand closed around hers gently, not with control, not with ownership. It's just a quiet connection, like two pieces of something finally fitting together. "You know," Vela whispered, "I still don't fully understand what's happening between us." "Same here," Tom said. "But it doesn't feel wrong." "No," she agreed. "It feels right." They stayed like that for a long time, hands joined, saying little because sometimes words weren't needed. Sometimes presence was enough. That night, a storm rolled across the desert. Wind howled through the metal structures of the colony. Lights flickered, and most workers stayed indoors. But in the heart of the repair station, two figures sat close beside the glow of a lamp. Vela rested against Tom's shoulder. Tired from the wind and the emotions, he held her gently, neither of them speaking. Outside, the world was wild and loud, but inside, it was calm, safe, and in that small, quiet space. Something stronger than fear or shame had taken root. Something not built on accidents, but on choice, trust, and understanding later. As the storm faded, Vela looked up at Tom and whispered, "Thank you." For seeing me, Tom looked down at her and said, "I always did." And as the colony lights came back on and the night grew still again, the girl who once hid in robes and silence was no longer hiding. She wasn't just a body, or a mistake, or someone's curiosity. She was Vala, seen, chosen, and finally free.